Welcome to the regular meeting of the Ojai Historic Preservation Commission for Thursday, April 12th, 2018. Sherry, would you like to do roll call?
Chair McCready,
Present?
Vice Chair Akins.
Here.
Commissioners Quinn.
Here.
McHatton.
Here.
And absent are Commissioners Hill, Commissioner Convery, and Commissioner James.
Thank you. With that, if you'll rise, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll lead. Begin. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Members of the public wishing to address the Historic Preservation Commission on items appearing on the agenda are requested to complete a speaker's card and file it with the Secretary prior to the start of the Preservation Commission meeting. Cards are available in the Council Chambers lobby. All comments should be limited to 3 minutes unless additional time is granted by the Chair. Speakers should state their name and address for the record and must direct their comments to the Chair, not the audience or press. While the Historic Preservation Commission is in session, members of the Commission, city staff, and members of the audience are expected to maintain order and decorum and to obey the orders of the Chair. Mark Lewis, Museum representative, is not here yet. I'll reserve the right to let him step in.
I have his information. He's on jury duty today. So, basically, the Ojai Studio Artist Scorched exhibit is currently going on. It's artist's response to the Thomas Fire, and so the theme of the Thomas Fire and everyone that was impacted in many ways is in their lovely exhibit. So it's very, very touching to see. On April 22nd, a week from this coming Sunday, the museum will feature a town talk by Ojai Valley Defense Fund founding president John Brosomley about the many threats to the valley from mining companies and developers that have been fended off over the years. Introducing John will be the Defense Fund's current president, Mark Frost, co-creator with David Lynch of the acclaimed TV series Twin Peaks. And also the other thing that's helping generate funds and interest throughout the community is the recent book, fairly new, Ojai by Design, which is Ojai Architecture, recently published by the Arts Commission. It can be found in the museum's gift shop. And this book was written by former HPC Vice Chair Craig Walker. And it will be the basis for the next museum exhibit that will open in early July.
Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mark, for sending that.
I'd like to say hello and welcome to our new Community Development Director, Luke Connolly. Nice to meet you.
Very nice to be here. I think you're sort of the last commission and board that I'm getting around to meeting. So though I did meet Brian, I believe, February 27th, something like that, when I was introduced before I started.
Month or so ago, we happened to sit next to each other.
We got to accidentally just sit next to each other, and so I got a head start with you. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. Quite a bit to get up to speed on. I've kind of jumped in already. I've been at all the other meetings, so while I wasn't really involved in producing these changes, I'm happy to see where this is headed, and it's kind of nice to be in a community where historic preservation is obviously a paramount issue.
Thank you.
So, and happy to talk to you afterwards if you've got any other questions, so thanks.
Thanks a lot. Consent items, meetings of the February 8th, 2018 regular meeting. Commissioner comments, corrections? I had none.
So these are the minutes for February 8th?
February 8th, yes. First, we have 2 batches.
Yes, we do.
Don't think I had anything.
One thing I did want to thank Sherry on, I think it was in this meeting, is the fact that we now have, and I believe it's on the website, I know I got an email that linked, so all the historic landmarks all have their historic resource report that was done for them over the years, and so as Elise and I found out scrambling today, we don't have to remember where those historic reports were anymore. We can find them with a link to the City Council website. And so thank you very much for doing that, Sherry. That's fabulous. Also, all of those have been downloaded and are now archived with the Ojai Valley Museum.
Are there any other commissioner changes, comments, corrections to the February 8th minutes? Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of February 8th, 2018.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion. McCatton abstains. Thank you. Meeting minutes of March 8th. I had no corrections or changes or comments. Any other commissioner comments, changes?
I was absent from this meeting, so I'll abstain on this vote, although I did watch it on television.
Quinn abstains. Motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve. I was there.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
And now for the good stuff.
Item 3, review and discussion of the term sheet and draft proposed amendments to the Cultural and Historic Preservation Ordinance of the Ojai Municipal Code, Sections 4-8.01 through 4-8.23. Mr. Connolly?
I think I'm going to defer the presentation to Matt Summers since he was a little more directly involved with this. I did have a chance to go through the code changes again and obviously signed off on the staff report. But I think Matt has a brief staff report on the issue and happy to participate in any questions afterward.
Thank you. Mr. Summers?
Thank you, Chair, members. So before you is the hopefully penultimate version of the proposed changes to the Historic Resources Ordinance. I won't go through them in detail as we've talked about them previously, but the changes are shown in attachment A, the full sets of changes from the current ordinance to now, and you'll note, and I believe they show up to some extent in the blue, are some further changes made from our last discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the blue makes those further changes from our prior discussions before you. And so what we have for you tonight are to, if ready, take any public comment and then make a recommendation that the council consider these changes. And I'll note that the written changes leave section 4.8.13 structures of merit stat, but we propose in the attachment C to also take forward the commission's recommended changes to that section as well, separately for council consideration, allowing the council to have that as well if the commission so chooses.
At the same time?
Yes, all in one package. That's the second sheet that's oriented the other way. And that sheet shows,
That's right at the end.
yeah, at the end, it shows that the commission, if approved, would recommend elevating sites of merit above their current designation-only status to protected status, and then reflecting the fact that none exist. The commission, if approved, and council could work on adding some to the list. And that would also be brought forward to the council if the commission so acted tonight. And otherwise, I'm available for any questions on the prior changes. Just briefly for those who may not be familiar with them, mindful we have a new commissioner. The sets of changes have kind of three overall goals. One is clarity. Two is recognition that not every project may be appropriate for a full-scale review by the commission, and thus the creation and division of work on a designated landmark into ordinary repair and maintenance, which just does not require review by the commission if it sticks to certain limited categories of work that don't affect or change a character-defining element of a landmark, and then minor work permits, which would be work on the interior of a landmark that does not affect a character-defining element. So for those landmarks that have interior character-defining elements, those would still require HPC approval. But if it's work on the landmark but not on the character-defining element on the interior, that could be approved just by the director. And then for the remainder of the category, major work permits would require review by the commission, and that would be for work on the exterior of a landmark that would affect, on any exterior that would affect the character defining elements. And further, I'll note that the Commission's present proposal, and this is in page 11 of Attachment A, is that any work on a landmark or on any other structure on the same parcel as a landmark would require review by the Historic Preservation Commission, exterior work that is. And that's a change from a prior version that we discussed, reflecting the Commission's request. I'm not entirely sure that the council, based on some prior discussion, will accept that, but that is up for the council. We will bring the Commission's recommendation to the council. And in all cases, a decision at one level can be appealed up. So the director's decision is appealable to the commission is appealable to the council. And the intent of this was to solve a problem we had seen a few times before, where an applicant would get stuck in a round robin between this commission and the planning commission, each imposing slightly different requirements that in some cases were opposite. And it was unclear how an applicant could move forward and get a clean decision that they could then evaluate whether to comply with or appeal. And so one of the other changes provides that, and let me find the page number, that we put it in here somewhere. I forget the page number, but we had put it in the provision that a project that requires multiple permits would go to this commission first,
I saw that.
and then, I'm blanking on the page number, but I know we put it in here. Oh, thank you. 15. It provides that a project that requires multiple work permits would come to the commission first here, and then to the planning commission if required. So for example, you have a landmark house. The proposal is to do an exterior addition. That affects the exterior of a landmark, so it would require a formal work permit, a major work permit by this commission. It also requires, if it's a two-story house, planning commission approval. And thus it would be here first on the historic aspects, considered, reviewed, if approved, then to the planning commission, who would then review the broader design aspects. And then from there, it could be appealed to council. The intention being to create a linear process rather than a round-robin process. And once this commission had acted on a work permit, that decision would then go to the planning commission as a decision. The planning commission could require further changes to the project, but they wouldn't be looking at they wouldn't be able to override this commission's historic decisions. Those would remain set. And then the applicant, if they're unhappy with the decision, could, after having the planning commission review it, then appeal the whole package up to council. Solving another problem we had seen at one point of decision by this commission and an appeal to council on that decision, but then it still had to go back to the planning commission, and now we had it all out of order. So that's one of the main goals of this set of changes.
I saw that. It makes sense to me.
And I think that's all I have, unless there's specific questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did go through it,
Can I ask
and
one question on the staff report?
please, go ahead.
So, Mr. Connolly, just on the job, but a lot of the verbiage in here, many of the changes in here in affecting what Mr. Summers said involves the community development director. You said you had I can see that you signed off on the report. Did you have a chance to review the report, and are you in concurrence with Mr. Summers' recommendations?
Yes, I read the report and read the changes in the ordinance, everything in this packet I have reviewed. I had comments and questions about it too to get up to speed, but I actually thought it was pretty clear, not having been part of the earlier discussions with where this was headed. So I didn't see anything that really raised any particular concerns with me in terms of preservation or the process for how these things are handled. So no, I think I'm familiar enough with where this is headed.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. It does appear to reflect all of the comments and changes that we had suggested for the most part. I'm sure I missed something. I have a couple of small items that are really, really small. Page 1, landmarking. under discussion, it says landmarking as 2 words, that should be 1. And on page 8 of 20, 7 lines from the bottom, it's just a phraseology that I objected to where it says, in red, the Historic Resources Report shall be prepared in line with the Secretary of the Interior's standards. You changed it other places, but I prefer consistent with.
Oh, yeah.
Page 8 of 20, 7 lines from the bottom, in red, the Historic Resources Report shall be prepared consistent with the Secretary of the Interior standards.
Reasonable.
I told you they were small. With that, I will open it up to commissioners' comments and discussion. Mr. Akins?
Okay, let's see, flag the areas. Just a quick question. In looking at the staggering of the commissioners, are we okay? You know, with the rotating, or are we out of sync? I can't remember if we were out of sync. It's something to
Are we
look at
complying
maybe-
with that, you mean?
Yeah, are we, like the city
I
council?
can't answer that.
Okay, just while we're looking at that first page. I guess somewhere in here, there's a section that says character defining element. It's in there 8, 10, 12 different spots. I think I circled most of them. And then on page 2 of 20, we have definitions, alterations, architectural appearance, commissioners, construction, council, demolition, all the way down and through, I think, onto the next page. Do we ever define what character defining element means?
I don't believe we have a separate definition of it, but that's certainly one we should add. The intention is that character defining elements are the features, characteristics, facts that identify and make a landmark special, and they would be identified in each landmark's historic resources report. But you're completely right, that should be a separate defined term. We can add
Yeah,
that.
like I said, it's used 10, 12 different times in all kinds of different manners or focuses, and I couldn't find a definition. I know when we did the school, Nordhoff School, that was a big thing, big
Right.
discussion that took place on what the heck were character defining elements.
I think that we've taken that language from the Secretary of Interior standards.
Yeah, that's typically how you get it is in the report. So the report would be prepared and saying if it's architectural, it's going to call out what the principal character defining elements are of that time period and then apply them to the structure and say why it fits that time period.
I completely agree
right.
with you, but
To define
what
it
are
in the
character
ordinance.
defining elements
I-
as perhaps
I think that
there must be a definition in the,
they just are defined, as you said, in the whatever,
Yeah.
the
But
Historic
I-
Resources Report for that landmark.
I think one way to do it would be
It could be architectural, it could be it could be cultural, it could be historic,
right. It depends on the
it
structure.
may not be physical.
Right.
Right, it might be an element of the place. I think one thing to do would be to add a definition for it here that says something like character defining elements are identified for each landmark as stated in its historic resources report, something like that. So we have a definition for the term in the ordinance, and then we
Perfect.
recognize that it's a term that varies landmark by landmark by landmark.
Perfect.
sounds great.
Good catch.
I very much appreciate the items that have been picked up in the changes. One of the things that's, been an item of discussion is that there have been times when historic resource reports were prepared for an item that's going before the Planning Commission, and unless we were at the Planning Commission or looked at their agenda, the Historic Preservation Commission, that being historic, never saw them and never had the chance even to review them or to have some kind of input in the process, even though there was a historic resource report either required or in one case it was done by the applicant at their expense and submitted. So I appreciate that we are involved in that process and in seeing that report. Let me ask another question on, again, attachment 8, page 4 of 20. We keep talking about points of historic interest. There's another term, are points of historic interest, sites of merit, another term that I had. Are they all meant to be the same thing, or is there a real distinction amongst those three?
I think that they would boil down to types of landmarks. In particular, a point of interest would be, and that's defined in the existing ordinance on page 3, the area or the site of a building that doesn't exist anymore. And so if it exists, it could be landmarked. If it has been demolished, but we want to designate where it occurred, then we could put designated a point of interest and put a plaque or other signifier up. The kind of the example would be the Groupie Clampus Vitus has done that around the state. A number of areas that aren't, they're not state historic register designated places because they don't exist anymore, but they'll still put a historical marker. So that's my understanding of a point of historical interest, and that would still recommended by commission, designated by council, and then a marker could be put.
Okay, because the example I look at here, again, on page 4 of 20, 4-8.05C, it says, public hearing to hold public hearings for the purpose of identifying historical landmarks, historic districts, or points of historical interest. A site of merit, I guess, could be any one of those, possibly, or would be included in the first one. I'm just...
Yeah, sites of merit or structures of merit would be a different category, reflecting that at the moment, structures of merit
Yeah, that was the other thing.
don't have,
Structures
aren't
of-
subject to any restrictions if the council adopts these changes in full, including the proposed recommendations to impose conditions upon structures of merit, sites of merit, then sites of merit should be separately listed there
Okay, so,
as requiring a hearing to designate, and I think that is picked up in that separate set of changes.
so I think as we discussed the 2 pages at the very end that talk about sites of merit, that perhaps with those gaining importance, maybe we could join those or clarify those, or again, there's like 3 or 4 different, even the sites of merit that we talk about isn't called the sites of merit on the city council, on the City of Ojai website. It's historic structures of, so again, that was just something that's talked about in multiple different ways. Character defining.
And if I could go back to the prior point about reports being reviewed by the commission, that is one that you may wish to modify the text. The language is on page 5 and 6 at the bottom.
5 and 6 of 20 on attachment.
Yeah, attachment A. The black line is existing ordinance, and we've added, at the request of the council,
Mhm.
review and comment on a historic resource report prepared for any other project requiring one of the several listed permits. This would allow the council, but not the planning commission, to direct that a report that has been prepared be reviewed by this commission. You may wish to ask that the planning commission be given the same power to refer a matter to you for
Oh, okay.
consideration.
Okay,
That would accomplish the wish, Commissioner Akins, you had stated earlier.
Okay.
thank you.
Moving ahead to attachment A, page 11 of 20. Is it that one? Well, no, it's attachment A, page 9 of 20, especially since we have the Terramina Community Historic District report in our site. Just want to point out that in section 4-8.09, it essentially redefines the voting that's available to the people that are within the historic district, that the voting, as shown here, is 1 vote, 1 site, or 1 vote, 1 property. Again, with Terramina, if you had a property that was jointly owned by husband and wife, they got 2 votes. If you had a property owner that held 3 properties, that property owner got 1 vote. And I think you've clarified it here in the text that you have here, basically saying that one property, one vote. It came about when you were discussing the majority, what constituted a majority.
Yeah, and you've actually hit up on a point we should note, which is that we fixed that definition in page 8. The same language shows up on page 9, and that needs
Yeah,
to
it's
be
in there a couple
adjusted
times.
to match the other changes. And yes, as you'll recall, the Taramina district was approved, and that district it wasn't a typical area where there's usually one-to-one ownership of lots to properties. There was one owner that owned many lots and other lots that were owned by many people. And because of the current language, the count was however many owners there are, no matter how much they own, one vote per owner, and then the math was done. And of course, there was sufficient math to allow the commission and council to approve a historic district. The proposed change here is that it's defined as one vote per parcel. So the entity that owns, any entity that owns multiple parcels would get multiple votes, and the husband and wife who own one parcel would together get one vote. And that's the commission's what I understand the commission's goal is. And so we'll make the clarifying change in 4809 to match the language in 4808 to that effect.
Yeah, again, you know, I brought it up because we were at the Taramina community. We very much in depth explained that to those that were here and those that were listening, how the count took place. There was one side who put forth that even if it had been done with this type of majority, that they would have prevailed in the item. Whether that was true or not, we don't need to know. But again, that's essentially, to a degree, radically different from what we did on Taramina. So
Right.
I wanted to make sure people are aware of that.
Exactly.
Okay,
What's proposed is a change from what was the law in place at Taramina.
50
Although
years
that
from now.
designation doesn't change, it remains designated.
Right, so just the majority. One thing that's come up repeatedly over the years is essentially the segment visible from the public right-of-way. And what we discussed in looking back in the previous minutes when we went through this was that you were going to set aside, basically do, this is what it says and this is what the Secretary of State says. And so can you clarify for us whether visible from the public right-of-way is, because essentially it looks like those words have been struck throughout the document.
Correct. The Secretary of the Interior does not apply that standard. They assess it a little more holistically. Does it affect the landmark? Leaving it a little more open to interpretation as to what affects the landmark. Having understood the Commission's request to structure it as the landmark and those on the same parcel, that's how this draft is phrased. Of course, the Commission could adjust its language if desired.
I'm just trying to understand exactly what the Secretary of the Interior standard is, because again, this has been debated by a couple different sides, one of which would have been here, but for a death in the family. So,
Fair.
so I'm just getting your,
Yeah, so as I've
what are
looked
the
at
rules?
it, the Secretary of the Interior standards are a little more holistic, and they don't impose it as visible from the right-of-way.
Commissioner Quinn?
Thank you. I think both Craig Walker and myself believe differently.
Okay.
I guess I didn't realize this was going to be changed here, or I would have looked it up again. But my recollection is that it does say visible in the Secretary of the Interior,
Visible from the right-of-way or visible from the landmark?
from the public right-of-way.
Oh, that's fair. Maybe we should double-check.
I think we should, because as I say, I didn't look it up again, but I will tonight. So
Thank you.
I think we should check.
We can double-check, and if the Commission's ready, we can still move this forward to the council. And in the council packet, we can give them a copy of the standards and highlight the relevant page.
Commissioner Akins?
Yeah, I support Commissioner Quinn's request, because again, I just want to make sure that, I'd like to put the debate to rest. I'm sure
Understood.
we all would. That's all I have, thank you.
have an answer for your question, because you're wondering about,
Oh, you have them handy.
well, not to that one.
Is your mic on?
About their terms of office, that
Oh, yeah.
Commissioner Hill and
Mike,
Commissioner Quinn and Chair McCready's term of office is up on May 24th this year, and the other 4 commissioners are in 2020.
Oh, nice, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Do you have?
No more from tags.
So could we go back to the, Mr. Summers? To the end of it, the sites of merit, the proposal for, I guess it's the addition to this ordinance of this section?
Yeah, it would be for, sorry, it would be for rewriting, also rewriting section 4813.
So will this be the first time that council sees this information here? Yes.
I believe the
We've-
council
we've-
saw an early version of this in the
Okay.
last joint meeting that was held between your commission and the council a little while ago, a year and change. I'm not sure if they've seen it since. I don't think they have, unless they've been reviewing your agendas.
Okay. Are there other commissioner comments or questions about this last part here? Commissioner Akins?
No, again, it's like the visible from the public. I'd just like to get this to where a decision's made, and so we're getting guidance on, how they feel about the recommendation that we're making, that we, feel are important. I think one of the things also that I wanted to point out in this is that I think there were repeated hints, prods, that the city does have a responsibility to look in the city, to do surveys of the city. And for the Historic Preservation Commission, it is our responsibility to, as it says in here, gives us, the Planning Commission, the City Council, the opportunity to open our eyes and go and look for what we feel is historic, and then make that recommendation to the City Council. So I think
Yes.
everything that's in here reinforces that responsibility of ours, and that we're, not doing this just because we like to be curious. I'm curious. I like to do it, but to waste anybody's time. I think, I support what the chair said. This is something that we'd like to see moving and like to get resolution and like to get support.
Commissioner Quinn?
Thank you. I'd like to go, excuse me, back to page 5.
5 of 20?
Yes, where we're going to add that the planning commission could send things to us review. I'm not sure that I think they would recognize what should come to us, as well as maybe the director of community development. Somebody who, we would recognize it, but I'm not sure the planning commission itself would necessarily recognize that something should come to us.
I think it would go to the director first.
So
Yeah, typically that would be the order. It would probably come to me first. I mean, I don't know if I can think of a circumstance where it'd be initiated by the planning commission. I guess it could happen, but obviously staff level's probably where you're gonna start.
So I'd rather see, instead of the city council and the planning commission, rather the community development director.
we can make that change to the text. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner McHatton? Mike?
Is that on? Yes. On page 3 of 20, there's just this "or" that I'm not sure is supposed to be there. It's on the second set of red, removal, maintenance, or installation. At the end, there's an "or" there, but there's not "ors" at the end of any of the other ones. See that little hanging?
Oh.
I don't know if that's supposed to be there.
Oh, yes. I think that "or" should be moved to the end of the second to last paragraph there, because these are all under the term ordinary repair and maintenance means any of the following
Right.
on the prior page, X or X or X, all the way down.
But that's the only one that has that "or" there, so I just thought it kind of looked a little funny. And then on 5
Yeah,
of
thank
20,
you.
under J, the informed citizen, can we add just a little bit more modern? I think the way we communicate is not only newsletter or brochures, that's something physical, that's something more website, social media.
Social media.
Just putting that on there, that's how we would normally communicate nowadays.
Agreed, thank you.
And it's our intention to do so.
Yes, exactly.
Anything else, Commissioner McHatton?
I think that's, all my other questions have been answered.
Commissioner Quinn?
Sorry, so now that brings in that same thing. I didn't really notice this before, but I think the "and" between brochures and pamphlets doesn't belong there.
Agreed, yeah,
Okay.
that can drop out.
Thank you.
Commissioner Akins?
No, I'm done, I think.
So do we need to make a motion to send this on to council? Okay, do I have a motion to send to council with the proposed revisions and changes? Commissioner Quinn?
I move that we send the amended proposed to the city council.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you very much. We will get the revisions made and get it brought up to council. I'm not sure when it will be on their agenda,
Okay?
as the mayor controls their agenda, but it will be put on the list.
Thanks for being patient and slogging through this. You know, I think it's an improved document.
Happy to take the time. Thank you very much for your many hours reading, reviewing, editing. The comments are very much appreciated. It's a team effort, really. Thank you.
Item 5.
4.
I'm sorry, did I skip? I did. This is the language, or the Smith-Hobson House, potential revision to the existing plaque language and to discuss the plaque location for the City of Ojai Historic Landmark Number 23, the Smith-Hobson House. So, is this, Sherry, the old plaque
Yes, that's correct.
that we had last time?
Yes.
So, the changes herein are the changes that were, I'm sorry, Mr. Connolly, do you have anything to brush past you there? I'm sorry.
I don't feel slighted. I thought this was very self-explanatory. What you're considering before you is revised language for the plaque that exists.
Thank
So,
you.
Nothing to add.
Basically, what you're doing is deciding if you want to spend your budget to purchase a new one with the new language.
Okay. And this is the proposed language on page 1 of 1, or, yeah, yes.
Attachment A is the language, and attachment B is what it looks like on the plaque that we will order. Attachment C is what exists.
Okay,
If you want to keep what exists,
public
great,
comment?
but what you're deciding tonight, do you want to spend money, have a new plaque, and this plaque just becomes recycled?
so at the bottom of attachment A, 1 of 1, there is no public comment,
Okay, no, so,
no green cards.
okay.
Louise? So,
Yeah, I'm going to.
I'm going to say a few words if you'll allow me.
Well,
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Akins.
The only reason is, Elise and so I posted Elise earlier today, maybe late this morning, and so we were going back and forth with phone calls and emails and different things, and just trying to verify that what was the final language to be submitted, even an update from this. And so the biggest question that we still have is whether the Frank Mead was essentially involved in the architecture of the house. And then we made some other changes to include the names of the children and the Rodney, the son's widow's name. But in talking with Elise, she checked many of the sources she has, and she's been excellent in communicating with the past, with a daughter, I believe, who lived in this house. And then there is a relative who has a Smith family archive. And so we wanted to ask for more time so that we can verify who the actual architects were.
Okay.
We looked at, or, well, Elise looked at, you know, what David Mason had said, what the Historic Resources Report had said, what she's looked at information from the newspapers that was presented at our last time. There still seems to be a little bit of conflict and no real support detailing exactly who the architects were, what the,
The report does, do you want to approach? Do you want to approach? Please.
there we go.
With the fact of it being, the problem with the fact of it being saying Mead and Requa is there's no verification for it whatsoever. And even the historic research report does not give any, what do you call it?
Citations.
Citation for their statement of it. And in all my research, I've never found anything stating that. And David Mason's article about it he only mentions Requa as being the maker of the plan. So I wanted to try to pursue some more research on it.
Okay.
Before I've contacted Greg Smith. He's the
Okay.
descendant of Rodney. He's the son of Rodney Smith. And they've got a whole family archive. And,
Okay.
and I've also contacted another fellow who does research on Frank Mead to see if he has anything. But I just would feel
Better to
more
be cautious. Could
I
you
bet
state your
it's-
name for the record?
Elise DePoit,
Thank you.
Ojai.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable doing another plaque with that.
But nor do we then.
And the reason we wanted to add the children's names was because there was almost a whole line of space left over.
So we value your input. How much time do you think, do you think we could
I called-
agendize this for our next meeting in 30 days, or?
I called Greg already today, but he wasn't in, so I'm Greg Smith.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Till next month then?
Thank you.
Okay. Unless you really want to go with Mead and Requa, I don't.
No, I'm kind of surprised, but anyway, I think we do have probably,
One other note was, at this meeting, could you go ahead and decide the location you want to post it, or do you want to wait
Yes.
for that as well?
we could decide that. First, let's deal with this. Do you want to move that we continue, Commissioner Akins?
So yes, I'd like to make a move that we continue this item until the next HPC meeting.
Don't make a decision.
No, well, I think they're only on the wording. I still think that we can make a decision on the location and on whether we want to buy another plaque today. Does that sound correct to you, Chair? So that's the
Yes.
motion. My motion is only that we postpone the wording for 1 month.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries. So as far as the budgeting for the new plaque, I think we do need to approve that. Do I have any discussion on that item?
So I make a motion that we spend the $400 for a new plaque based on the new language out of the HBC budget.
Do I have a second?
Well, I actually want to have discussions.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not gonna,
On the budget item?
yes,
Oh, please go ahead. I'm sorry.
that's okay, thank you. I think that we should wait until we have all the facts to decide, because, I guess it says Mead and Requa on that, so if it turns out not to be, then, I just think that maybe the budget and the wording could go together, but the location could go today.
Okay. So I take we lack a second for that motion. So the motion dies for lack of a second.
I wouldn't spend more time, effort researching it if you're not going, indicating a willingness to change it.
Well, I don't think we're saying
No,
that.
we're not saying that.
we're just saying, let's just see what happens, what you find out. If you found out that they were there, then we have a whole different idea. So
But even
I-
if you,
I need you to approach if you want to
Well,
have the floor.
yeah, well,
even if
where
she
we're at.
finds out that, there's still
wait,
errors on
wait,
this either way.
wait,
That wasn't there were other corrections made to the text
Right, I
besides
I
dealing
understand
with
that.
that. So I thought before spending more effort on it, that if I know you're willing to make the change, then I would put that effort in. But if you're not willing to make the change to the plaque, then
I don't know,
think
that's not
we're
what we
saying.
stated. Yes,
well, it
anyway,
sounds like.
thank you.
so.
So the motion to.
Can I amend my motion then?
Yes.
Okay, I have the floor.
Okay.
We have a motion to continue the discussion of the wording of the plaque, and it is carried and it is passed. Before us now is the budget. We have decided, there was a motion to continue the decision on the budgeting for the plaque until we have the wording. Did we have a second for that?
I will,
Was-
I will definitely second that. I mean, I don't want it going up with errors. It has errors either way, correct?
We're talking about the funding.
Right, but
Yeah.
I'm saying, we'll need the funding to change it, and if there's errors on it, whether, so, I mean. we
So we'll
sh-
continue that as well. So with that, we can discuss the location of the plaque.
Well, wait a second, though.
Oh, my
I'm-
goodness.
No, I made the motion. My motion certainly isn't to spend money that we don't need to spend until we need to spend that money. So the motion was purely to take $400 out of the budget and to purchase another plaque at the time we have the information to purchase that plaque, and we're only going to purchase that plaque when we have the accurate information. To echo what Elise said, we're not going to use that plaque. That information on there is not, even if we went back to Mead and Reckwa, there's still too much information on that plaque that's incorrect. So that's what I was sharing.
Well, I'm open to another motion.
Go ahead.
Well,
Commissioner Quinn?
Well, my whole thing wasn't to just make this drop out of sight, but, so I'm willing to go with Brian's motion to approve the budget for another sign.
So do you want to place that in motion again as,
Well, Commissioner Aiken, or Vice Chair Aikens amended his motion, and Quinn is seconding the amended
Yes.
motion.
Mhm.
Very
all
good.
those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. So, the third part of this item is the location of the plaque. With that, I'll open it up for discussion. I prefer it on the wall right in front. That's what I think. Any other commissioner comments?
Well, I agree with you, that it's just so obviously the place to put it.
On the right or left?
As shown in the photo.
Wait, where's the photo?
Right there, it's not showing the left wall.
Oh, that, yeah, right on this wall.
Commissioner McHatton?
That seems illogical.
Commissioner Akins?
Well, originally, when we were looking at it a month ago, before our meeting, when I thought we would decide, we actually, Sherry and I went out and looked, and so I actually liked it on the left, because again, you're not, it doesn't
In
have the,
competition.
yeah, in competition with that, so.
You
just
prefer
my
on the,
thoughts. Yeah, over here on the left side,
I
that there's
didn't
a wall
provide a
over here.
photo of the left side, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's another similar wall that's over here
Okay.
that's left
And-
blank.
and that was, you felt it was better because?
It wouldn't
It wasn't in
compete.
competition with the city sign.
You want to take a recess?
Oh,
somewhere?
right you are.
I mean, we can always.
You're right.
Maybe go out and take a look.
You're right.
Uh-uh.
It is a smaller plaque than that. Okay. I agree with that.
I
Commissioner
just wanna
Quinn?
say, well, your eye is caught by this sign,
Right.
and then there's the other sign. So I still maintain my position on the right, left, whatever one this is.
Good news is we all like the front wall.
Yeah, we all like the front wall.
So, but I don't mind walking out and looking at it. That might change my mind.
Commissioner McHatton, do you have any comments?
I like the front wall.
But on which side?
I'm not sure. I think that one, it does compete a little bit, but once your eyes,
Oh,
I think either way would look nice.
actually, now that I look at this, Commissioner Akins, I think it would be better if they were together so that you see them together.
I think so.
But above it or next to it? Next to it, I think.
Yeah, right next, because it has that smaller part right there, to center that on the plaque, on this small.
Above the City of Ojai sign?
No, right, this little, I don't know what this is smaller, it comes like this, and.
So next to it?
Yes, right
To the
here.
right of it?
Yes, to the right of it, but centered on that. Centered, because it'll be smaller than that, I think.
Sounds good.
Would you like to make a motion, Commissioner Quinn?
I would. I would move that we put it on the, we're calling this the right side, right hand wall to the right of the City of Ojai sign.
Do I have a second?
I will second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I don't
All
want to
those
belabor
opposed?
this, but if I had a quick question on that, would you have any idea, like in terms of spacing? I know exactly, in terms of alignment with the smaller portion on the right side, but an approximate separation distance maybe, only because if you wanted it a little bit further or next to it,
I think,
I'm not suggesting I get a tape measure, but there could be, how close would be?
shall we say 3 to
ballpark?
5 inches space between them?
I was gonna say 6, so yeah.
6 inches between them?
Three, well,
Perfect.
you know, something, whatever, when you hold it up there, whatever works, I would say.
Got it. I was just more concerned if there was something like a larger
no,
separation.
inches.
That,
No,
Right.
inches.
Thank you.
thank you.
These are the decisions that let my wife make.
Item 5, plaque language for City of Ojai Historic Landmark Number 24, Nordhoff Grammar School, located at 414 East Ojai Avenue. So, on this item, Elise, do you have comments that you'd like to make before we start discussing? I thought that
Chair,
Okay.
quick question.
Commissioner Akins?
My understanding is, in reading through the email that was attached, on attachment C, we have not seen these versions, so, until our package came. So I was looking for this to compare it against something previously, and we haven't seen it. There's nothing to compare it against from what we might have had previously.
Okay. So, I think that on the third paragraph, it should be terracotta clay tiled roof, or it is a clay tile roof.
In the third paragraph? Is this
Third
on two?
paragraph of version 2,
Oh, terracotta clay tiled roof?
because it is, terracotta is clay, but I would say clay. Or, okay. They're all here.
Yeah, we have them. We
Yes.
just hadn't seen them before we got the package. So,
So you,
topped by a terracotta clay tiled roof?
yes.
Oh, okay. Terracotta is one word? Yeah. Okay.
And also, in the fourth paragraph, I don't like the term drawn up. I would say prepared by. In 1930, was also designed by Roy Wilson's. Improvements were made in 1953-54 from plans
Oh, yeah.
prepared by. And I would say, now we are capitalizing Spanish Revival style. I think we should also capitalize modern in that case, because I'm very sensitive to the kindergarten building, because I still want to save it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, because modern is a style. Where was that?
That is in the fourth paragraph,
2, 3, 4. Yeah.
last sentence.
So you're gonna put modern?
I would capitalize modern, because we've
Is modern in there?
capitalized
I'm missing it, sorry.
right here.
Are you on 2?
I think I am.
You're on 1.
Yeah, and version 2 doesn't have the modern term in the fourth paragraph, then not that I can see.
Okay.
How was that
So
phrased?
now I'm confused. There's so many versions here.
Oh, okay.
The only difference is the, for the lease, the only differences between them is in the fourth paragraph. It's just one, the second one trims it up a little bit, and the third one trims it up probably too much.
I think I like the original then, with, I would say mid-century modern or modern capitalized, because I want to draw attention to the kindergarten building.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I was concerned the city.
Those are
might-
my comments.
I was concerned the city might not want to draw attention to it.
We were trying to walk the line today when we were talking about this.
Are there other commissioner comments
I
on
I
the
think
language?
that-
McHatton?
Sorry. When we talk about other buildings that have been removed, if something happened where that elementary school was no longer there, it still can be referred to. So I don't see a problem with having it listed on there, because they were talking about a building that's no longer existed in the wording already. So I think, I don't see why the city or the school district would have a problem with keeping wording about the elementary school on there.
I agree. Commissioner Akins?
So on version 2, could you put in modern with a capital M, style kindergarten?
Yeah, I think so.
Insert those 2 words, modern style kindergarten, with the capital M.
I think
And
you could, my other question too is, did you actually want mid-century modern? Because I think that clearly defines an architectural style. Modern is,
I
but
would.
it's all more of a lay term too, that somebody might not
I would say,
catch that by modern, you're referring to a particular post-war style.
I would say mid-century modern.
I personally, I would say that's clearer knowing your intent.
Thank you.
So you're looking on number 2
we are,
and wanting to add mid-century modern?
yeah.
Kindergarten building.
Yeah, further additions, including offices on the Ojai Avenue and the mid-century modern with capital M. Mid-centuries, is that capitalized?
Mid-century
too?
modern is fine.
I would capitalize the M, hyphenate, capitalize the C, and then capitalize the other M on modern.
Makes sense. Yeah. So those inserts kindergarten on North Montgomery.
That's a defined term in architectural.
It is.
Commissioner Quinn?
I guess I'm not really quite understanding. What was wrong with the original version? Maybe somebody could tell me?
We, in our last meeting, we had, staff had prepared text for the plaque, and we had public comments also from Ms. Dupuy, and so this is a response to that with her revisions.
Okay, I mean, I did see that on the TV. I saw that meeting, but I didn't really get I don't really get what the differences are, why. And the other thing that happened like watching it on TV, is Elise came and was, as she was passing things out, was talking, and I missed all of that conversation as she all you can hear on the TV is when someone is actually speaking into the microphone. So there was a lot of, several different times things were passed out, and she was talking, but I couldn't tell what she was saying. So I'm willing to go with whatever version everybody wants. I'm just not clear exactly what we're changing and why the first one is not okay.
I think that I've been using the first one myself, and shortening it didn't seem important to me, and I just had three things: the clay tile, prepared by, and mid-century modern. So their full text was fine with me. I don't know how the other commissioners feel. Commissioner McHatton?
Elise, why did you like the second one better? Can you come up and
You need
answer
to
that?
approach.
Can you answer
Sorry.
that for us? I'm sorry.
Television reason is noted.
I was concerned with the length and the size of the plaque, that's all.
Okay.
Just, I didn't know if the first one would fit on there.
I think it's fine.
Okay.
Commissioner Akins?
Yeah, the other thing was, and again, part of our discussion today was, it was trying to kind of walk the tightrope between what our feelings were as a HPC and what the council might say, well, no, that's just too much, because we didn't include that in the historic landmark. So that's why I was for number 2, which shortened it up and still talked about that part without making it a fuller section of the paragraph. It was just to get it passed. So those are just my thoughts on why to go with section 2,
Version 2?
version 2.
I still feel that it should be mentioned. Because, for this reason, Mr. Akins, that in the Historic Resources Report, the kindergarten building was deemed to be eligible not only for local landmarking. I know that the council chose not to landmark the mid-century modern building, but it was deemed to be eligible for state landmarking as well as local landmarking. So, that's where I stand, Commissioner Quinn.
And I think this is such an important building that the more information that we can provide that is better, and especially including the kindergarten, even though it might not have any future effect, but it's still informative to people who are reading this sign and may not know anything about it. So I still like the original version.
And it might get people to walk around the back and go, what is this kindergarten
Exactly.
building?
Exactly.
Yes, and the kindergarten building was, of a piece with Miners Oak School, which is not in our purview, and the Miramonte School, which is not in our purview. They're important.
Also Oakview, by the way.
Elkview. And I understand there's another one in Malibu that I attended when I was a little boy.
And,
Commissioner McHatton?
and Bunch Hall that I was at yesterday in UCLA.
There you
It's
go.
another beautiful building.
So, are there any other comments or changes or additions? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. So
Commissioner Akins?
I would make a motion that we use the text that is in version 1 and move forward on getting the plaque made and it being put in place.
With the changes suggested.
Yes.
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
The motion,
With the mid-century modern added? Okay.
the motion carries. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
And the terracotta clay in there. And then prepared by.
Thank you, Elise,
Where's
for
the,
your help.
where was the prepared by inserted?
It's,
In the first one? Erwin?
Yes.
Where in the first one was it? I know where it was in version 2.
It was the 4th line down in the 4th paragraph, where it says drawn by.
Oh, there we go. Plans prepared by, thank you.
so this is what, wait a minute. What did we just approve? Didn't we
Great.
just approve this?
We just approved this.
And is this different than this?
It's the same thing.
Okay, good. Phew.
Thank you. Future agenda items. Next month, we select new chair and vice chair. I think everyone should have gotten in the packet from the month before last, the information on various, the summer courses at USC.
Mhm.
So if you're interested in those, you need to let Ms. Herbrook know that. Mr. Connolly, do you have any upcoming business that you'd like to make us aware of?
Nothing definite offhand. I'm trying to plan out future agendas, looking at both this commission and the planning commission, so I don't have anything certain, although these USC courses have me interested in looking at some of them too, even though I
Yeah.
probably couldn't attend. Are they affiliated with the Green and Greenhouse, by the way, or, I know USC owns that, I was just curious.
As part of one of the classes, they do have the tour of it, I
Okay.
think, yeah.
Just off the agenda, but I thought I'd ask.
With that, I'll open up to Commissioner comment period. Commissioner Akins?
Tell us about the sign.
Oh,
Is that the real sign?
yes.
We have two of them. That's the real
Fabulous.
sign. But we do need to work with Public Works, whether it's gonna be in the public right of way
I
or
know.
and so we're gonna, maybe we could put it
Remember that
on next month's
discussion.
agenda to discuss, to assign a commissioner to meet with city staff to decide on a location, or
Okay,
maybe that could be.
okay.
Yeah,
the
can I go ahead
And
and,
with the community development director, pardon?
can I go ahead and be that commissioner since,
Well, I suppose, could they go ahead and vote on that, Matt? And just assign Vice Chair Akins to be the
It
commission
wouldn't-
liaison?
The
Yeah, it
liaison.
wouldn't be a formal action, because you can't vote on something not on your agenda, but if there's
Right.
no objection, Commissioner Akins could work with Public Works Department and,
And community
He can
development
volunteer to
director.
do so.
exactly.
okay, I so volunteer.
Thank you.
We're trying to get that
in
sign up.
touch. Also, I did look on the guidelines, and it says visible on the site from the public right-of-way. So it does mention it in the historic.
Thank you. In the coming month, at some point, Commissioner McHatton and I are going to meet and discuss ways that we can enhance our social media presence. So if you have thoughts on that, you can contact Commissioner McHatton or me. Any other commissioner comments?
Rick Bisaccia, when he was a
Started.
commissioner, started something like that, so there may be something
Craig
back
gave me
in
his-
the,
Craig gave me this information.
okay, great.
Commissioner Quinn?
So then I would just like to say to Mr. Summers then, so instead of crossing out that is visible from the public right-of-way on page 11 of 20, based on the information provided, can we leave that in?
Yeah, if there's no objection from the other commissioners, I'm happy to return that to, public, and that's in, section, page 11, section 4815. I'm happy to return that to be, work permit required for the listed actions that are, if the phrase is, before any of the following actions may be undertaken for a landmark or for any non-landmark structure on the same parcel as landmark that is visible from the public right-of-way. I'm happy to return that language if there's no objections.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Did we need to reopen that item to insert that?
It was already on your agenda. You might, we could formalize it as, we'll reopen it and then another vote to confirm that decision. Let's do that for the record.
Okay, so that's item number
3.
3. So with that, we'll reopen item 3, and the discussion is to add the language that Commissioner Quinn suggested, or amend the language.
I'll second that.
All those in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Herbrook.
There being no further business, we are adjourned. Thank you.
It's on the last page. It says after city council approval, RFQ, after city council approval.
You're still on.
We're mum.
I believe the meeting had been adjourned, yes? Yeah.